Hi, I'm Laura Berg, and with me today I have potty training expert Jamie Glowacki. And I have to say, Jamie, I love your website. I'm going to put it down at the bottom so people can actually type it out, and I'll put a link in the description. You have to visit it. Um, oh crap, potty training. I love it. And
Thanks.
that's what your book is called, right? Oh crap, potty
Yes.
training.
Yep.
Okay, so tell us how did you come to be this potty training expert and write your book? And
How did I become a potty training expert? I think it's kind of an interesting story. I used to be a social worker in San Francisco, and I worked with moms and kids, and I taught parenting classes. I worked with dual diagnosis moms, so they had substance abuse and mental illness. So they were difficult to work with. I did not have a child. I was not part of the mommy culture. I had no idea potty training was a hot topic. I knew it needed to be done with my clientele. So I searched online, and this was 10 years ago, 15 years ago. So there wasn't quite so much information online, but I started interviewing the previous generation, and I was like, how do you potty train? How do you do this thing, potty training? And I figured out how to do it. I figured out how to teach it to my clients, and it was just part of my job. I didn't think anything of it. Fast forward a few years, and I had my son. We moved to Rhode Island, and when he was 22 months, I told our little moms groups and our friends, we can't go to the playground or the library. We're going to be potty training. And everybody flipped out like, you don't potty train with a 22-month-old, and boys are harder than girls. And this was really weird because it was news to me that this was a struggle. I was like, what? No, you
right.
potty train at this age. And why would it be harder with a boy than a girl? It was fascinating to me that I wasn't even aware of it being a hot topic.
Huh.
Of course, I potty trained my son that weekend, and it went great. And of course, now I was like the rock star on the playground.
I
So
bet.
and I was like, my kid's not a genius. I swear to God, it's just really easy. So it was really funny because I couldn't really wrap my head around what was mucking everybody up. So I started holding classes at my house. Like I would just have some friends over, like a little Tupperware party. I would give them the information, and pretty soon I started to be known as the potty training lady. So then I owned a store at the time, a secondhand kid store, and I started offering classes at my store. And I was getting super popular. And I couldn't, people were going on vacation, they couldn't attend my classes. So I said, let me write this all down. And I wrote it down, and it was a book. And so I started a website, and it started to sell. And two pediatricians used it and made copies for their waiting room. And that's what really put Oh Crap on the map.
Right.
And then I sold my store because all I was doing was answering questions about poop all day. So it quite naturally became my job.
What an
And
interesting endeavor.
yeah, and then 2 years ago, I reformulated the book, and the book was really expensive for a while. It was $40, but it came with online help. And that was really great because I super got to connect with real moms in real time. So this wasn't based in theory. It wasn't based in my work with clients 10 years ago. I was just starting to see all these current parenting trends and what parents are really struggling with lately. And it's really interesting to me because even potty training and parenting problems come in waves. And so something that I had never even heard of, all of a sudden everybody was experiencing. So, and then obviously I'm one person, so that got unscalable. I couldn't be dealing with
Right.
hundreds of people at one time in a forum. So rewrote the book to make it less expensive. So now it's $15, but I was able to put all that work that I did into Oh Crap potty training. So I like to say that it's not a method. I don't have a method.
Right.
Maybe some philosophy, but there's no method to potty training. You either you take off the diapers. That's what you do.
Right.
What my book gives is every single answer to every question you could have, and I have heard them all. Like seriously, I,
Right.
I have a prize to give people when they come up with a situation that I haven't heard of. So
Right.
yeah, so that was it, and I named it Oh Crap. I guess I was trying to be funny. It wasn't named for like poop. It was named for the look on parents' faces when you bring up potty training. They'd be like,
that
"Oh
that would have been
crap!"
me.
Yeah. So, and of course the double entendre it just works so well. So that's how it got its name.
Right. Well, you know what? It's so funny because when I started potty training my children, it was stressful. Like, and I was
Yes.
anxious, and I went online to try and research information on how best to do it. And there's so much information out there. It's almost overwhelming. That I like the idea of your book and it just being sort of a hand guide for parents to be successful. Um,
Yeah.
so
You're And let me interrupt you for one
Yeah.
second. You're so right. And I see that all the time in my work that I call it choice paralysis. And they just, I didn't make that up, but, um, what happens is there's just so much information and we're dealing with our kids. So
Yeah.
it feels vitally important to get the right information. And what I want to remind people is 90% of the potty training information out there is put out by disposable diaper companies. So
Oh,
one of my fights as a businesswoman, I will never be on the front page of Google because that's all Pampers and Huggies who pay per click. And so they're putting millions of dollars into mucking you up about potty training. So I think that's a
interesting.
really important thing to keep in mind. Like, who are you getting your potty training information from?
Right. Oh,
Because if you
that's very
think that
interesting.
Pampers is going to give you a potty training chart and give you good advice, they're not.
Right. Right. And I think parents think that the pull up stuff is an easy step. And, I know my children were very opposed to potty training, and I was anxious because I didn't want to make them uncomfortable.
Sure,
Right. So I think
sure,
that's
absolutely.
so let's talk about sort of some practical information that we could give my
Sure.
viewers. When do you recommend parents start potty training?
When to potty train? That is like the biggest question. So I give a window of 20 to 30 months. There's a magic. I've done this with thousands of kids. There's like a magic 2 week period, and I want to say it's almost always between 22 and 24 months where it is effortless. Unfortunately, our kids don't come with a guide. We have no clue when that 20 that
Right.
2 weeks is. So it's a real crapshoot for that like super effortless potty training. It's younger than most people think in our current society.
Yeah.
Um, it-
Yeah.
what I like to say is I like to compare ready versus capable. So, the big thing is I'm going to wait till he's ready. And the readiness, so readiness could be interest in the toilet, right? Every kid starts showing some interest in going to the bathroom, in mimicking mom and dad. That's it. That's your window of opportunity. So if you don't jump on it then, people think, so say like one day you wake up and your kid says, oh, pee potty. And you're like, score. My kid's going to potty train themselves. This is awesome. And so you let her pee potty. Then the rest of the day, you put a diaper on it. You don't actually attend to potty training.
Right.
It doesn't escalate. Most parents think that, okay, she asked once today. Tomorrow she's going to ask twice. And then in a week, she's going to be done with diapers. That's not true if you don't attend to it. So you got to give it some attention and focus. And if you don't, the kid is going to move past it and move past it developmentally. So whenever I get a kid who's like, 32 months and the parents are like, I don't know, there's no interest in the toilet. I'm like, you missed it. It probably happened at like 20 months, 21 months. So it's always earlier. It's much earlier than we think. And Laura, to be honest, I think we're all just so busy. We're
Yeah.
busy. Our kids are in daycare. Most of us have second jobs or other kids, and we're all trying to, exercise and eat healthy. And so I think we just miss the readiness. If we were old fashioned moms and we just sat around with our kids reading, we would probably pick up on it. But
Right.
none of us have that time.
Yeah. I found that's what happened to me. I mean, I assumed it would be later than what you're saying, and as I said, I really didn't know how to begin, and
Sure.
you know,
Well, I wanted to give your viewers some clear markers.
great.
So for readiness, again, I look at capable. So you want to look for the thing about potty training between 20 and 30 months is there's a real reason for that. There's a lag in developments, right? Your child's mastered walking, they've mastered eating. A lot of them, they've mastered separation anxiety. So right now, nothing else major is happening. They're just going to hone those skills until 30 to 36 months. Now, what happens at 30 to 36 months is individuation starts. Now, that's a real psychological process in which your child figures out that they are separate from you. So guess what happens when they figure out they are separate from you? They figure out that they have free will and choice. Right? So that's where you're marked with tantrums. No, the sky is blue. No, it's not. It's red. You're going to be so if you guys are going to be arguing about the sky, think of what's going to happen if you're arguing about poop. It's just
Right.
going to escalate. So your kid's going to have that. Your kid's going to be more skilled in manipulating you. It just happens.
Oh yeah.
The other thing is the longer your child's in a diaper, it's a habit. Most children have been in a diaper since before their first feeding.
Right.
Think about that. It's
Yeah.
an ultimate security blanket. You have to remember when potty training, your child has a high investment in keeping the diaper on. right?
Right.
And that's what a lot of people forget. They're like, oh, I don't know. They feel like when they're met with resistance that they're damaging their kids psychologically, and it's not true. You just have to guide them over that hump of fear and that resistance.
Right.
So there's that component. Now, what I always say, there's some markers. So can your child recite the ABC song? And it doesn't have to be perfect, but do they know the tune, and they can kind of sing it. The reason I use that as a marker is because they've learned something by rote and practice and consistency. No mother on the face of this earth has sung the ABC song one time. Doesn't happen, right? It's ad
This is
nauseum.
true.
So, so they've learned something by rote. It's also a really good indicator that does your child understand the ramifications of learning letters and what words he's going to produce, and that novels were written with letters that become words. He doesn't understand all that. It's just a fun song. So we just
Right.
want to stick to the task at hand, so we don't have to, put all this psychological net on potty training.
Right.
Can your child communicate that he's hungry, thirsty? I use communicate because, a lot of people hesitate to potty train if their child's pre-verbal. And the reality is you don't have to wait for them to verbalize, because you're always in constant communication. You know when your kid's hungry, whether or not it's they point and or, indicate with sign language, or, for milk or whatever. So your child can communicate. The reason I say that is, can your child communicate that they are hungry or thirsty? They are acting on an inner body sensation, right? They're acting on it. They're like, something's happening. I need this. They're capable of potty training. My last marker that people love, can your child throw a tantrum for something he wants? All right. And chances are the answer is yes. Again, your child is acting on a want, on a desire. Every tantrum is because you are not giving something to your child, or vice versa, right? So your child wants something that he cannot have. So he's acting on that, and he's acting on that in a very certain manipulative way, which means, all that means to me is developmentally his brain is working. So developmentally he's ready to be potty trained. Okay. So if you take a kid who is pre-verbal, like a 16-month-old says, I know a lot of people do potty train at 16 months, but say that kid, you don't find tantrums in 16-month-olds usually. If you don't give in to their demand, they usually just are distracted by something.
Right.
So that psychological process isn't happening. So we want to make sure that it's a good thing when it is, because now we know he's capable. And I'll go back to ready versus capable. Is your child capable of potty training? Not ready. Let's get ready off the table. Our kids are really capable of more than we think.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I look around and people are like, my kid can read. And I'm like, yeah, but he's sitting in his own poop. Like, that's not, like, what good is reading if you're sitting in poop? So, so you just want to look around and think of, I know as a mom, and I'm sure, Laura, like, I'm astounded. They learn at the speed of light. And
Amazing.
I'm like, whoa, and so start looking around and looking to see if your child is capable, not
Right.
ready. Because readiness, I get a lot of people who fall into this magical thinking. We've all heard about the mom whose child up and decided to take off the diaper and was potty trained.
Yep.
Let me tell you, I have done this for over 10 years. I've worked with thousands of kids. I have never seen it. So I'm not doubting anybody. I think potty training pains are like labor pains. I think they get like really smudged over time. So I wouldn't buy into that. So I find a lot of people are fearful, don't know what they're getting into. Their kids may be spirited or showing resistance already. So they're like, okay, I'm going to wait till he's ready. And I don't mean this to like burst anyone's bubble, but it's really a cop out. It's really it's saying, you know what, I'm hoping he's going to do it on his own, so I really don't have to address this.
Oh, I was there. I was
And
like,
then the problem is the older the child gets, the more mucked up it gets. And now you have a child with like memory. So whatever struggles you have, like if you wait till after 4, that's actually a struggle your child's going to remember.
right.
And be,
So
it's going to
interesting.
affect, so I feel really compassionate towards the kids. I tend to be very hardcore. I was telling Laura before we started recording that I can be judgmental, but I feel very defensive of the kids because I don't want them. I had a 6-year-old parent come to me. He was still in pull-ups at night, and he went for his first sleepover. He was mortified,
Right.
and he came home and he screamed at the parents, "This is your fault." And I was like, well, it is, like you have to attend to it. We can't just think that our kids are going to do it themselves, because maybe they will, maybe they won't, but I just don't feel comfortable with that risk.
Right. No, exactly. I was under the impression that the longer I waited, the easier it would be because I'd be able to communicate with him more.
Sure.
And he'd understand better. And but what you're telling me just makes so much sense. I wish we had this interview 2 years ago, because I would be so much more successful with potty training.
Well, you know what, Laura, too, I think it's a really important thing to remember with all the online stuff, with so many, the difference between us as moms as a generation and my mom's generation is we're so afraid of of damaging, and we read and we sort of pathologize everything we're doing a lot more than my mom's generation did. And what you need to remember with potty training, it's just teaching a new skill.
Right.
It's pee in the potty. You don't have to wrap up all this crazy psychology into it.
Right. And so how long should it take to potty train?
Oh, that's great. So it should take, that's another media influx that is really maddening. So there's many 3-day miracle potty trainings, many boot camps. So 3 days, there's a reason. 3 days will and should get you over the hump of potty training. Some kids are rock stars. They will get it. If you hit that magic 2-week window that I was talking about, you'll be like, why was I even afraid? This is awesome.
Right.
And almost none of us hit that. So, so, you know, some kids will do it in a day, but 3 days you should be feeling a ray of hope. More realistically, 3 to 7 days. In my work, I see two kinds of people. I see these people who are casual and wait till they're ready, and they're like, oh, it's only taking us a year to potty train. And I'm like, a year? How could it be taking you a year? And then I have the flip side, which is like, I started potty training at 9 this morning and my kid is peeing on the floor. Like, okay, could we give them more than 3 hours to catch up?
Right.
So my thing is don't get locked into anything. And one of the things I've discovered, Laura, is that potty training is actually the first thing you are concretely teaching your child. You are the teacher, they are the student. It is one of the first things they're going to learn that has one desirable outcome and has only sort of one way to get there.
Right.
Okay. So previous to this, your child's been building with blocks. You don't judge how the blocks come out. It doesn't matter if the blocks fall on the floor. Well, you're going to care if pee's on your floor, right?
Yeah.
So there's only one desirable outcome. So then it gets all mucked up because what if you're a crappy teacher?
Right.
And we all are. I'm a crappy teacher with my son on like really physical things because I'm super physical. So when he couldn't ride his bike, I was like, like I was the most ineffective teacher because I was like, well, stop, just get on your bike and go. So I think it's wise to remember that sometimes when we feel like a crappy teacher, that's when the process breaks down because we're like, I suck at this.
Yeah, no, totally. And I think we do expect results faster.
And I think it's a good thing. I say it's like looking into your crystal ball because you're going to get an insight into your child's learning pattern and curve, how they learn. Are they visual? Are they linear? And then I think it's wonderful because this is just the first of these major milestones. Not every kid learns to tie his shoe in 3 days. How you relay tying your shoe. Like I was super frustrated teaching my son how to tie his shoe. But you figure out how your kid learns, right? And there's no other developmental milestone that we put such a cookie cutter version on, right?
Right.
No other, oh, your child didn't walk in 3 days? What's wrong with you? You know, my child walked in 2 days. We don't do that. And yet we do that with potty training. So it's an interesting situation.
And would you recommend that parents stay close to home or just go about the regular routine?
You have to stay close to home. You have to stay close to home for 3 days because the very first day is going to be all about catching the pee in the potty. And this is a tip I'll give, for free because most parents screw this up. Like you can't just tell your kid you're going to potty train, put underpants on them and go.
Right.
You can't. So the number one thing, especially if you're doing it before 24 months, is you actually kind of have to wait for the pee, get them to the pot. You have to make the physical connection for him. What you're doing now needs to happen over here.
Right.
And so, yes, I do suggest you stay close to home. I actually suggest you clear your calendar as best you can for a week because what's going to happen, and I realize there's moms who work, and we'll address that in a second.
Just stop for 1 second, Jamie.
Yeah.
I can't hear you as well.
Yeah, the construction.
No, I can't hear the construction. It's just when you're moving around, I think your cord is...
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's perfect. Okay.
I will try to stay still.
So where were we? Okay, so you suggest clearing the calendar.
Right. And you don't have to clear it fully. Like, I know moms freak out when I say that, but one of the problems is if you are rushed to get somewhere, it's if you put any pressure on this process, it's going to collapse.
Okay,
So if you're like, hurry up, you've got to pee, we've got to get out of the house, you're never going to get a pee.
gotcha. And what
Um,
about parents whose children are in daycare? Kind of,
Daycare is a whole nother ball of crappy wax. I have a whole chapter on daycare.
I
So it
bet.
all depends on what kind of support your daycare gives you, how old your child is, what room they're going to be in next. You know, most daycares have like a potty training room. But I will say daycares have really stopped potty training. So the American Pediatrics Association put out something last year that said a child needs to be in diapers, potty trained in diapers for a month before you take off the diaper. Did you follow that?
Wow.
Which is okay. So guess who funds the American Association of Pediatrics?
Diaper company?
Oh, bingo! You win a $1,000 prize. So this is crazy BS because what happens?
Huh.
You cannot actively engage in new behavior while engaged in the old behavior. So I often
Right.
say, would you like to? So say you want your kid to eat broccoli. Would you go to the M&M flagship store with broccoli and be like, here, eat the broccoli? Like,
Yeah.
no, you know what I mean? So, so daycare's jumped on that, and daycare's made it their formal policy. I get it. I know it's challenging, but what's happened is now I don't know if your kid's in daycare, but most kids go in daycare and then right to preschool. Preschool demands fully potty trained. So if
Right.
daycare's not helping you and you're a working mom, you get totally screwed. And so I have some really real world tips in the daycare chapter, like what to do, even how to be sweetly passive aggressive to get what you need. um,
You don't seem like you'd be good giving tips at being sweetly passive aggressive at all, Jamie.
well, I always say I'm a real world potty trainer, so I want it to be good for you. And if we have to navigate around daycares, we have to. And but I feel like if they're not going to help you, it's okay to be passive aggressive.
No, that's great that you offer tips for that because I think that a lot of parents are in that boat that
Yeah.
they have to so they're doing something at home and then they're sending their child to daycare. It might make it really difficult, so I'm glad to hear that you
And
offer.
I'll give you one big tip on daycares too for your viewers. That one things we have to remember is we can't micromanage daycare. We have no idea what is happening. You will get an end of the day report, but you have no idea what attitude, what facial expressions. You just don't know.
Right.
So if it's really falling apart at daycare, stop struggling. Let your child diaper at daycare and keep going at home. And I give you a very concrete way to do that in the book. So you can still do it at home. And I've had plenty of kids do that. And what ends up happening is all the pressure's released and the kid will end up, taking care of himself at daycare. And I used to not advise that, but I've done so much work now with daycares because we're all working moms. It's okay. So in other words, just don't continue to fight with the daycare because you're just going to keep getting attitude. That attitude's bound to leak out onto your
Right.
kid, and it's unpleasant. So it is possible to attend to potty training at home and not daycare if that's what you need to do.
Right. Okay, that's great. Those are good tips. I think that parents are maybe unsure or uncomfortable at, scheduling that time and staying at home. So that's good advice for you to give to parents. I think this has been really good information that you've offered, and I really appreciate that. And I think that I wish your book was around when I was potty training.
I
I would
know,
have
I
ran
know.
and bought one, and I think $15 for this advice is amazing. You are clearly passionate
Yeah.
about this. I can really, it comes across.
Yeah,
Who knew? Who knew somebody would be so passionate about poop?
exactly.
But here we have her with us. Um, this is wonderful. So when does your book come out?
The printed book. So right now it's PDF. The printed book should be out by September.
Great.
We're hoping. Publishing never works the way you want it to work. But we're also filming in Orange County for a DVD. So we're going to have a DVD. And our final goal is going to be like an app. So we get to press all the fancy buttons while you're learning because that's how we learn now
Yeah,
on the iPad.
apps are great. Apps are the way to go.
Yeah, but we're also doing the DVD. I do workshops across the country, and it's really interesting because the people who take my workshop potty trained effortlessly. So we want the visual, like we're changing
Yeah.
into a visual culture, and we get information better
We really do. It's
visually.
very true. We want that visual. We want somebody to tell us what to do versus reading
Hmm.
how to do it. So that's great that you're putting those things together, and I think you're a brilliant person that knows so much about this. I'm so glad you came on and
Sure. Thanks for having me.
shared your information. I'm going to put your website again. It's going to be in the description, so people can just click on it, so you can read more about Jamie and buy her book and reach out to her if you want.
We also, Laura, I wanted to say too, we do a live radio show Tuesdays at noon on Blog Talk Radio. So I take questions on there, and if you like us on Facebook, you can write in a question, and we
Oh,
answer them
great.
on air. So yeah, it's a
Okay, so I
resource.
will also put your Facebook page link down there and
Great.
that information. Again, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciated having you as our guest.
Sure. Thank you.
Thanks. Take care, Jamie.
All right. Bye bye.